Okay, picture this. You've just wrapped up an amazing photo shoot. The images. Portfolio gold. You're thinking publication, maybe even a big international award.
That's great.
But hold on. Before you hit upload anywhere public, there's this mandatory legal step. Well, it's non-negotiable, and honestly, it trips up a lot of creatives, even experienced ones.
And that hurdle, that's 2257 compliance. For photographers, ignoring this isn't just a bit risky. It basically guarantees your work cannot be legally shown on public platforms.
All right.
So our mission in this deep dive isn't just to flag this requirement. We want to give you the specific actionable know-how so you can make compliance just a normal part of your workflow. Protect your art, protect your business.
Yeah, because the stakes are really high here. This isn't some optional item buried in the terms of service somewhere.
No, not at all.
We're talking federal law. Getting this right means you're legal, it builds trust with models, and it really determines if your work can even be shared long-term. So let's unpack this. Looking at the source material, it seems like the biggest problem, the real danger zone, is this common misunderstanding that photographers have. What is that exactly? What puts people at risk right away?
Well, the really dangerous idea is thinking compliance is optional. Or maybe just low priority, something you'll get around to.
Like a nice to have, maybe.
Exactly. Or they think, okay, I'll just upload it, and if the platform asks for papers later, then I'll deal with it. Or even worse, they hope they can just skip it by using some site that doesn't seem to check too carefully. They see the paperwork as this annoying barrier, not what it actually is, which is a crucial way to protect everyone involved.
That's a huge miscalculation, though, because the platforms, the galleries, they're not just making up rules to be difficult, are they?
Not in the slightest, no. They're reacting to a specific federal law.
Okay, let's get into that a bit. You mentioned 2257 compliance. Where does that actually come from?
Right, so we're talking about Title 18 U.S.C. Section 22 of 57. That's the specific federal statute. It mandates very specific record keeping for anyone producing certain kinds of visual media.
Okay.
And the key thing for you, the listener, to understand is this isn't a guideline. It places a direct legal obligation on anyone who produces, distributes, or even advertises content that falls under its scope.
So the platform, whether it's a stock site, a gallery, an awards body, they are legally required to enforce this.
Yes, absolutely.
They aren't just adding red tape. They have to mitigate their own legal risk, and they do that by making sure the creator provides proof before anything goes public.
That's it, exactly. The platform has a duty to make sure the content meets the standard. And so naturally, that duty gets passed right down to you, the creator. If you can't show the documentation, the platform simply can't risk hosting your work. It's a whole chain of legality.
That shift in thinking.
Yeah.
Viewing it not as a platform thing, but as a mandatory federal standard tied to that specific law, 18 U.S.C. Section 2257. That changes everything, doesn't it?
It really should, yeah.
So we know the rule exists, but why? What's the fundamental purpose behind this specific and, let's be honest, pretty demanding documentation requirement?
It really has one main goal, and it's all about protection. It's laser-focused on ensuring the safety and legal standing of the people in the images.
Oh, so?
This compliance framework demands solid proof, basically irrefutable evidence of two key things. First, that every single model is verifiably 18 or older of age. And second, that they gave explicit, informed consent for their images to be used and shared in the specific way you intend. Not just general consent, but specific.
So it moves it beyond just legal jargon. It makes it very human focused. It's about accountability, trying to prevent exploitation before it can even happen.
Precisely. And if you look at the bigger picture, this framework acts like a shield for everyone involved. It protects the model, obviously. But critically, it also protects the photographer.
How does it protect the photographer?
By giving you a verifiable legal defense if questions about age or consent ever come up later. It turns the creative act into something documented, legally sound, and professional. Without that paperwork, you might have beautiful art, but you also have a significant legal vulnerability hanging over you.
Okay, that leads perfectly into the practical side. For our listeners, professionals, or those aiming to be, how do we frame this compliance? Not as some defensive chore, but as just a standard, efficient part of the job. We need to get past the warnings and into the how-to.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to stress that compliance is professionalism. It needs to be built into your planning from the start, just like booking a location or setting up your lights. If you ever want to share that work publicly, or sell it, or enter it in awards.
Which is usually the goal.
Right. Then the documentation has to happen during the shoot, or immediately after, not weeks or months down the line when memories fade or people are hard to reach.
You mentioned earlier it demands irrefutable evidence, and you hinted that a standard model release often isn't enough. So what concrete things must be in that documentation packet to meet this federal standard?
Okay, this is where the details are crucial. The packet needs minimum 3 core things. And yes, it goes way beyond a typical commercial release form.
Okay, what are they?
First, you absolutely need verifiable proof of identity and age for the model.
Verifiable meaning?
Meaning you usually need to get a copy, a digital scan or photo of their valid government-issued photo ID, like a driver's license or a passport, something that clearly shows their name, date of birth, and has their photo.
Got it. ID copy. What's second?
Second, you need a signed statement from the model. This confirms their age again, and it explicitly states they consent to their likeness being used in the specific ways planned. And this is key. The documentation itself needs proof of when and where it was all signed and collected.
Wait, so just getting a signature isn't enough? You need a copy of the ID and proof of when and where it happened?
Absolutely. The law requires the producer, that's you, the photographer, to keep records that verify age. A signature alone doesn't verify age. So, current best practice, it's using specialized digital model release apps.
Ah, okay. Those apps that...
Yeah, they capture the ID image. They often use GPS to timestamp the signature location. They handle the electronic signature securely, and then they encrypt and store it all immediately. It turns what could be a paperwork nightmare into just another step on your phone or tablet during the shoot.
That makes so much sense. Using tech to handle the compliance burden. Okay, that's huge. But there was another complex piece you mentioned. Something about a custodian of records. That sounds official. Who or what is that?
Yes. And this is probably the most overlooked part of 2257 compliance. The law actually requires the content producer, again, likely you, to formally designate a specific person or entity.
Designate.
Yes. Name someone who is officially responsible for maintaining and preserving all those 2257 records. All the ID copies, the signed consents, the location data.
And they just hold on to them.
They have to keep them securely for at least 7 years. And critically, they must be able to retrieve them and verify them if requested by legal authorities, or even the platform hosting the content later on.
Wow. So the custodian isn't just like the person with the filing cabinet. They are the legally accountable point person for making sure those records are safe, complete, and accessible for years.
Precisely. It means you need a formal system. If you're a big studio, maybe it's an administrator or your legal counsel. If you're a freelancer, you likely have to designate yourself formally. And then you need a rock-solid plan for secure, encrypted, maybe even backed up storage.
Because if someone asks for that packet 3 years later and you can't find it or it's incomplete,
then the content is effectively non-compliant. Doesn't matter if the model was actually 40 years old. If you can't produce the complete, verifiable 2257 packet for them, you failed the requirement.
okay, the longevity and the accessibility of the documentation are just as critical as getting it in the first place. That's a really important point.
Right.
Let's switch gears slightly to collaboration. The source material really emphasizes this isn't just on the photographer's shoulders alone. It requires essential collaboration. How can a photographer use this mandatory rule to actually build stronger relationships with models?
That's a great angle, because by taking compliance seriously, by being upfront about it, you're immediately signaling something important to your collaborators.
What's that?
That you're a legitimate professional, that you operate safely and legally. For models especially, knowing a photographer is rigorous about 2257. That builds enormous trust. It shows you respect their rights, their safety, and their legal standing. And you're backing it up with verifiable proof, not just, a handshake.
Yeah, it shifts the conversation. It's not just, hey, sign this form real quick. It becomes, look, we need to create this shared, legally sound record for the work we're doing together to protect both of us.
Exactly. And that trust, it leads to better working relationships, potentially better creative outcomes, and crucially, it opens doors. Because compliance ensures the work can actually be shared, published, awarded. Non-compliance, well, it basically guarantees the work hits a dead end on any legitimate public platform.
Okay, let's really hit that point home then, the consequences. What happens if a creative tries to cut corners? Maybe they photograph someone who might be 17, or they just never bother setting up that custodian of records system properly. What's the realistic outcome?
Trying to bypass these rules is, well, it's a fundamental business failure waiting to happen. The most immediate thing, content removal. The platform, the gallery, the contest, they just won't touch it or they'll take it down.
Okay, so the work just disappears from view.
Yes, but it can get much more serious. because this standard is tied directly to that federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 2257. Failing to keep these records correctly, or worse, falsifying them, that can lead to significant legal trouble. We're talking potential fines, maybe even criminal investigation, depending on the specifics. It goes way beyond just having your photo deleted.
Right.
That's why integrating really robust, secure compliance methods isn't optional. It has to be baked into every single professional workflow, no exceptions.
So the big takeaway here for you, the photographer listening, compliance isn't just about dodging penalties. It's actually the key piece that transforms your creative output from just images into legally sound professional assets. Embracing these requirements, verified ID, proper consent, having that custodian of record system, it builds trust, sure, but fundamentally it guarantees your work can actually exist and be shared out in the world for years.
And, what's really fascinating to think about is how this mandatory standard, especially with the verifiable records and the designated custodian, might be subtly changing what professional collaboration even means in the digital creative space.
How so?
Well, if the legal burden of proof for public sharing is this high, doesn't it sort of imply that any content created and shared publicly without this complete, auditable 2257 documentation package is, well, inherently not professional? It raises a pretty provocative question, I think. Moving forward, can someone truly call themselves a professional in this field if they haven't fully integrated these detailed legal record-keeping standards into their day-to-day business? It's definitely some food for thought.